Hey there YouTube, this is Tyler, N7TFP. A lot of people have been asking me what all this equipment behind me is for, so today I'm going to take a few minutes to kind of explain to you how I connect all my radio and audio equipment together. Alright, so the first thing I'll take a moment to show you here is the soundboard. This is an 8-channel or 8-input soundboard made by Behringer. It's kind of a entry-level soundboard. It's not the greatest in the world. They actually don't make this model anymore, but I've had it since I was probably in middle school. So it served me pretty well, and I can't complain. One of the channels has gone out, but that's because I dropped a microphone on it, so it broke the little variable resistor that's underneath here. But anyways, I won't go into too much detail on this because they don't make them anymore. You can't get them anymore. So anyways, Behringer, pretty okay. Not top of the line, but it works well. What is it though? This basically is a mixing desk. It allows me to select what I want to listen to off of my stereo, and using some of these red knobs up here I can actually send audio to my radios or my computer as I wish. So what exactly do we have here? Well, let me kind of give you an example of one channel. For those of you who aren't familiar with soundboards and the way they work, it's basically one strip of knobs here repeated multiple times. So while it may look kind of overwhelming at first, if you just narrow it down to one set of knobs and talk about what they do, then repeat it a bunch of times, it makes a lot more sense. So these blue ones up here, these are equalizers, and to give you an idea of how that works, I'm going to turn in to the local airport weather station here if I can find it. I might have to tune it manually. I don't have it saved on a memory because I don't listen to it very often because it's kind of obnoxious. This is just a transmitter at the airport that pilots use to determine what the weather is, and it's updated hourly. And it's actually a person making the observation, so it's very accurate. You notice that this is my volume knob here, just this slider.
Expect West runway 17 approach. Advise on contact via Oscar.
Anyway, so that's from Tacoma Narrows Airport. And again, this is a volume control. We have a mute button here, which also serves another purpose I'll get to later. We have equalization, which changes the tone of the audio. This is the highs. I can increase or decrease them.
Temperature 13, dew point 12, altimeter 2985.
So you can see that changes the high end. This is the middle control.
Contact via Oscar.
Wait for him to talk again.
Airport information, Oscar 1653.
See how that works, and this is the low end.
X4, visibility 6, light rain, mist, sky conditions, ceiling broken 700, broken 6,500.
So anyways, that's kind of how that works. These red knobs I'll get to later. These are used for routing audio to the radios, and then finally the bottom is a pan in this situation which controls to the left and right speakers. So if I want to send it to just the right speaker, I turn it that way and vice versa. So that's a basic overview of how the soundboard works, and it's a lot simpler than it might seem. It has a few controls over here that control the master volume and things like that, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. I want to stop and go back just for a moment and talk about what these red knobs do. The bottom row of red knobs and the top row of red knobs are two separate buses, and for those of you who are familiar with electronics, or who aren't familiar with electronics, a bus is essentially a common, well, in some situations it's just a common strip of copper, a common wire or something, but in the audio mixer world it's a common output, for instance. So if I want to utilize that bus, which I am actually doing at this time, I simply connect up here. These two cables here are the outputs for the top and bottom red buses. They're sometimes called auxiliary outputs. And the auxiliary output 1 on the top I'm using to set up a mix or a custom set of sounds to send to my radios. And so most of the time it's just input 4. And you'll notice input 4, the knob is up, and the master for the top row of knobs is up. And basically what that means is the audio from my microphone, which is right next to me, is being sent to my radio all the time. It's not actually transmitting because I have a foot switch on the floor for that, but there is audio going to my radio from my microphone, just like you would have if you plugged the microphone into the front of it. But I can do other things with this as well if I would like. In some situations, if I wanted to cross-band repeat, all I would have to do would be to take my UHF radio, which is number 3. Looks like they're there it is. And if I wanted to, I could turn this knob up, activate my HF transmitter, and I would be sending my audio from my 2-meter 440 receiver out to the HF radio. Now, if I wanted to do it the other way around, number 2 just happens to be my HF radio. So I could take that knob, turn it up, and adjust a switch over here next to my radios, which would change my active transmitter to the UHF VHF radio. And all of a sudden now I'm sending my HF across the VHF, which probably wouldn't be very useful, but I could do it if I wanted to, all by just adjusting this knob right here. I can also send my computer out the radios, which is useful for digital modes like PSK, my laptop, and my microphone and the other radios and so on. So it makes it really, really easy to adjust what I would like to do. If I want to run Echolink on UHF, all I do is turn this knob up and I'm ready to go. If I want to talk on the 2-meter radio, I just turn that knob up. If I want to do both at the same time, I just turn them both up. So there's lots of flexibility. It's really handy. And it's a nice piece of equipment if you have a couple of sources in your, in your audio system. A couple of sources meaning a couple radios, a CD player, that sort of thing. This one's pretty full, but it's just about the right size for what I do. And for most amateur radio operators, probably a 7 or 8 channel radio mixer board would be great. So hopefully now you understand how the mixer board works. It kind of serves as a hub or a central processing kind of spot for all the input and output audio that is available here at my station. And so it serves to receive and distribute the audio as I wish. This thing here is kind of the next thing I'll explain to you real briefly. This is called a patch bay, and essentially what it serves to do is all the jacks and things that are on the backs of my radios that might be useful are actually available here on this patch bay, and most of it's audio. For example, I have the output from my HF radio, VHF radio, microphone, amplifier, my laptop, my computer, and that sort of thing. These are all outputs here on the top, and all these things here on the bottom are inputs. And when there's nothing plugged into it, like it stands right now, it actually doesn't really do anything. Where it gets interesting is if you want to change the way something is wired and do it temporarily. Instead of having to turn this thing around and actually unconnect and reconnect wires, all you need to do is make yourself a little patch cable like this. This one's pretty short. It's shorter than I would usually make them, but I have a bunch of longer ones over there. And say I wanted to change the way something is wired, all I would have to do would be select what I want to change here and rewire it. So for example, the output of my auxiliary outputs for my soundboard, as you'll notice, is wired into gate 1 and 2, which is this audio processor here, and then it goes from gate 1 and 2, this is the output of that, into my radios. So say I wanted to change the way where the radios get their signal, and I actually wanted to do it with an actual cable, all I would have to do would be this is the radio input, and I could select whatever I want. I could make it the right channel of my computer or my laptop or my UHF, VHF radio if I had a longer cable, and that would be possible. So I actually don't have to have a soundboard. This is kind of a more manual way of doing it. A couple of the things over here, these last 4 jacks on the end here, 23 and 24, are my push-to-talk controls. I've got a push-to-talk foot switch, which is down here on the floor, and it can activate either one of the radios depending upon a little selector switch, the setting of the little selector switch that I have. And so that foot switch is wired normally to the push-to-talk when there's nothing connected. There's an imaginary wire going between the top and the bottom jacks when you have nothing plugged in. But if I wanted to change it to my computer, for example, I could select the push-to-talk input on my radios, and I have this wired here to a little digital interface between my COM1 port on my computer. So if I do that, now instead of using the foot switch to activate my radios, I actually can use the computer. So that way I can run like PSK or maybe my Echolink node or something like that. And if I actually wire it like this, you have to understand how patch bays work a little more to see what I'm doing here, but I'm actually can do both at the same time. So I can use my foot switch to activate my transmitter, or if I want to use PSK or something like that, my computer has the ability to activate the transmitters, and it does it both at the same time. So actually I usually just leave it wired up like this, and that way I have the flexibility of doing either mode without having to change any wires. So a few of you have asked what all this stuff is up here. So I'll go over it real quickly. This is a audio amplifier in terms of high power stuff. So this runs my speakers in my room. Doesn't really serve any other purpose. This here is just a power distributor and surge protector sort of thing. This is just a master switch for all this equipment. So it turns the amp off, the equalizer, the compressor, and the processor all at once, because I actually don't have power switches on the front. So that's kind of handy. This is a graphic equalizer. You saw the equalizer on the soundboard down below, which just has those three blue knobs. This is essentially the same thing. Instead of having 3 knobs, it has a bunch of sliders, and that allows you to have more control over exactly how the audio is going to sound. So these are your high frequency controls, kind of medium frequency, and lower audio frequency controls. So it allows you to kind of filter it and adjust it much more precisely. Down here we have the microphone preamplifier and processor. It's pretty straightforward. It just serves to take the microphone signal and bring it up to line level, but it has a couple of other little features on it which are kind of nice. It has a thing called a de-esser, which takes out the S sounds of your voice, enhancer, gate, expander, and I won't go into detail on how that stuff works. That's kind of more audio stuff, but it, it has a couple of things that make it kind of a little more useful than normal. And then the next thing down here right above the patch bay are 2 compressor limiter kind of systems, and what they serve to do is create a maximum level of audio. And what that does is when I'm talking into my microphone, for example, if I'm using my radios, I don't want to have too much audio going to my radios or it'll distort, and that can cause problems in my transmitted signal. So I'm actually using channel number 1 over here as the limiter for my transmit audio into my radios, both my 2-meter radio and my HF radio. And I'll give you an example here. I've got it all set up for transmitting on the radios here, and if I get close to my station microphone, you'll see this limiter start to come on, and that only happens when I get very close to the microphone. So this is kind of what it normally does when I'm talking on the radio. You'll see it doesn't really do very much. But if I get too close to the microphone and really get kind of loud, it'll start to keep it'll start limiting my audio, which keeps me from overdriving my radio, which is kind of important. These radios have limiting circuits built in. They're usually called automatic gain control, AGC, and they work well. But this is an extra layer of protection just to kind of make sure that when I'm transmitting is the right level, so I don't have bad sounding audio. So that's kind of a nice little feature. And again, the patch bay is the last thing on the bottom of the audio rack, and that pretty much wraps up in terms of what I have here in the station rack. I think I've pretty much gone over everything. Oh, there's a tape player up here above it. I don't really use it anymore. I haven't even turned it on in a long time. It's kind of archaic, so that doesn't really get used very often. And then we have this here is a power supply, 60 amp 12 volt supply, and it's the old-fashioned linear kind of big heavy transformer, and that's not switching, so it doesn't really have any RF noise. It does a pretty good job of not interfering with my radios at all. Not to say that switching supplies are really bad. Sometimes they cause interference though, so I chose to go for the big heavy old-fashioned kind. That pretty much wraps it up. That's all I'm going to do for this video. Got any questions? Yeah, you know the drill. Leave me a comment or send me a message, and I'll try to get it answered. See you later.